As many of you know, I'm JR, and my wife is in charge of the variety show. She was very disappointed that I couldn't be here and do something. I actually had to work. She wanted me to be funny. Well, I don't know, I'm not that funny of a guy, so I thought I'd tell you a little bit about what I do at work. Most of the time I just work, but some of the time things don't go too well for me. When I first started my job, there was a lady that she came in with her husband every single day, twice a day. 14 times a week I saw this lady. And she's an older lady, and she's rather nosy with everyone that works there. And she's there 14 times a week, so, you know, you get to know her. Well, the people there had a nickname for her. It was Nosy Rosie. Well, I heard this nickname. I knew this lady. One day she came in to get her food, and I said, "How's it going, Rosie?" That lady's name is not Rosie. She goes, "My name's not Rosie." And I was stuck. So I said, "I just thought your name was Rosie because you're such a flowery personality." She said, "That's so nice." Well, I got sick. Excuse me, I got better. I went back to work. And Nosy Rosie is still eating at the restaurant 14 times a week. She remembered me. I remembered her. Her name is still not Rosie, and she is still very nosy. Um, Part of my recent stay in the hospital, I realized I'm kind of a strong-willed individual. One day I went down for one of my many MRIs, and had my MRI, which, as you know, if you've ever had one, is pretty much torturous. Then after that, I had to sit and wait for someone to take me back to my room. As I started to get a little bit better and could move around a little bit, I thought to myself, there's no way I'm waiting for someone to take me back to my room. So I got off my waiting bed, started walking through the hospital back to my room. The only problem was I had no idea where my room was, nor where I was. And any of you who saw me when I came to church after I got out of the hospital, I didn't walk too well with a walker. And this event was before that, and I didn't have a walker with me. So there's some wobbly guy wandering down the hospital halls till the MRI technician comes out, sees me wandering around, and she's like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "I'm going back to my room." She says, "You can't go back to your room by yourself." So she goes, "I'll take you back." So I got back on my bed, and she took me back, and I didn't have to wait for anyone. The only problem with that is that they wrote it down my chart that if you don't watch this guy, he'll leave. So then for the next 2 weeks, everyone that stopped by and looked at my chart said, "Oh, you feel like leaving, do you?" It's like, great. If everyone in the world would have known about it, I wouldn't have done it. So, and now this is a special request from the audience. Some safe for work bird jokes. Why do seagulls fly over the sea? They flew over the bay, they beat bagels. At Purdue University, they started researching birds actually, and they found out that whenever there's a V formation of migrating birds, that one end of the V is always shorter than the other end of the V. And they actually discovered why this is. And the reason is that there's more birds on that end. Animals at the zoo actually spend so much time with people that they become more like people than their native species in the wild. One example of this is penguins, and they found out that penguins actually like bubble baths. And the reason why they like bubble baths is they can't hold the regular soap in their flippers. Before I was a working professional, I went to college at Cedarville University. And before I had my wife as a companion, I had several guy friends that my roommates. And these guys were amazing at repelling women. At every turn, they could find ways to just make situations completely awkward and just really foul things up. So one day we went to the cafeteria, and we were a little late, and they had just closed the doors. They were still serving food, but they just weren't letting anyone else in. So as we got to the doors, someone saw us, a girl that we knew, and opened the doors for us and let us in. Well, this girl, my buddy Nate, happened to have a crush on. So we went through got our food and walking to our table. I said, Nate, you should thank that girl for letting us into the cafeteria. Because it's a good idea. It's a good icebreaker. Maybe talk and start a conversation. I was like, yeah, maybe we can even sit at her table. Because that's a really good idea. So we walk up to the table. He slows his pace down, makes eye contact, looks at her and says, "Thanks again," and then takes off running. Well, that leaves me at the table, holding my tray, with everyone looking at me, and no one else. So then I slowly walk after my buddy who ran away. These situations were pretty common. Every once in a while, we could even get girls to go out on dates with us. My buddy Patrick, one date, decided to start up a conversation. So to start the conversation, he says, "Who do you think is better, Superman or Mighty Mouse?" Well, his date was so impressed with this conversation that she buried her head in her hands and then turned around and started talking to the table behind us. Things weren't always that so bad with Patrick. One time, some girls saw us eating in the cafeteria. We were freshmen and, meet new people. So me and Patrick are sitting there, and two girls come up with their food, sit down next to us, and they introduce themselves. "Hi, I'm girl number one." "Hi, I'm girl number two." And I say, "Hi, I'm JR." It gets to Patrick's turn. He picks up his tray and walks away. So I look at them with an awkward face. I pick up my tray and leave. When we get to the tray return, he says, "Those girls said hi to us, didn't they?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "They wanted to talk to us, didn't they?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I blew it, didn't I?" I was like, "Yeah." With friends like these, you're probably wondering how I met my wife. Well, actually, I met her my junior year at Cedarville. We were leaving chapel, and I saw her, and I was like, wow, that girl looks really good. So I was like, I have to find an excuse to talk to her. So I got my schedule out for my classes. It was the first day of the new semester, second quarter, and I went up to her with my paper, and I was like, "Hey, I have racquetball class next. Do you know where that's at?" She goes, "I think it's the racquetball courts." I was like, "Oh, thanks." So I walked with her, and she happened to be going to the athletic center again. Little beknownst to her, I had taken racquetball in the hopes of meeting someone girly, particularly a girl, and I asked, "What class are you going to?" And she said, "Badminton." I was like, even more girly than racquetball. So, the next day, After her badminton class had ended, she walked into the locker room, and I was already done changing for my racquetball class. So I went to the end of the hallway, sat in a chair, and untied my shoes. I waited for the girls' locker room door to open, because I knew it would be her coming out of the locker room. So when she came out of the locker room, heard the door open, I started to tie my shoe. She walked by, and I was like, well, what are you doing here? She said, oh, that's such a coincidence meeting you. So I stood up and started walking with her. And I said, Amy, right? And she said, yeah. And she goes, Chris, right? I was like, no, it's JR. She goes, oh, I'm sorry. So I walked her to her next class and asked her for her phone number. Got her phone number. Called her up and went on a date. One of our first dates, we went and played pool. And Amy's not very good at pool, but I still managed to let her win the whole time, making sure that the game went as long as possible, hitting the balls around over and over and over, never any of the balls going in the pockets, just so I could spend more time with her. So after a while, I got to meet her friends, which meant eating with them in the cafeteria. And after I had the friend approval, we pretty much started hanging out every day. So that's how I met Amy. Is it going yet? Did you stop it? I don't know if it stopped or started. Stop it, please. You're pushing.